Many moons ago, before I dove headfirst into doing the deep dives for the Legacy of Kain, which, by the way, you should definitely check out, like, and hey, maybe subscribe. Yeah, that's right, I'm doing the subscribe spiel from the start. But before all that, I did a little primer, one of my Everything You Need to Know videos. And this one was about Final Fantasy XIV. And if that video got you interested in playing the game, then mission accomplished. But there is an element of the game, of that wonderful story-driven MMO that unfortunately, the video had no way to fully convey just how wonderful it is. So here we are, with everything you need to know about Hildibrand. During the now defunct 1.0 version of Final Fantasy XIV and during the development of A Realm Reborn, when the development team was introducing quality of life changes to the game to make the experience both better and more fun for those who kept playing, patch 1.2.1 introduced rooms at the different inns. And the quest character created to teach players about this functionality was Hildibrand. He proved to be so popular with the players that he remained a mainstay for all the inn-related quest lines. As the red moon of Dalamut appeared bigger and bigger in the sky, foretelling the end of 1.0 and the launch of A Realm Reborn, Hildibrand got one final questline where he misunderstands a prophecy and thinks himself to be the warrior that will save the realm. And after a little mishap with a gun halberd and some bomb ash, ends up being propelled towards the red moon, where he would remain, until he was brought back as the star of his own side story quest chain in A Realm Reborn and in almost every expansion since then, with perhaps the largest cast of one-time and recurring characters besides the main story quest. As the name implies, the Hildibrand saga or the Hildibrand adventures follow Hildibrand Halidor Maximilian Manderville, known at times as Zombiebrand or the Gentleman of Light, or most often simply as Hildibrand, Agent of Inquiry and Inspector Extraordinaire, who's really a bumbling idiot who at best is inoffensive and at worst complicates matters beyond any rational expectation. But with the best of intentions, he's wildly incompetent, often mistakes people's names and intent, and has even offered his services after the case is solved. But he's good-natured, kind, and dedicated to the pursuit of truth and justice. His only problem is that his methods are, well, stupid. Hildibrand is the son of Godbert and Julian Manderville, and as a Final Fantasy XIV player, if Manderville sounds familiar, it's because they run the Gold Saucer, not to mention being one of the most prominent artisans on Eorzea, and of their home nation of Ul'dah, where Godbert, not surprisingly given his wealth, is a member of the Syndicate, the body of merchants meant to act as advisors to the Sultanate, but that in practice are the ones who really run the show. Godbert, in fact, appears in main story cutscenes where he offers some advice to Nanamo Ulnamo, the ruler of Ul'dah. Godbert himself is a jovial man with a fully white head of hair and matching beard, who very much prefers to go around in his underwear, no matter the climate or the situation. In fact, it's a rarity to see him otherwise attired. Godbert loves his dear boy with a passion, and if he's aware that Hildibrand is, well, an idiot, he doesn't show it. In fact, more often than not, he joins his child in whatever zany adventure he might be on, but not before subjecting his offspring to some classic Manderville calisthenics. Yeah, let's call it calisthenics. Oh, and he's impossibly strong and often performs acts that are outrageous even by quote-unquote anime standards. There is also Hildy's mom, Julian, but I won't talk about her very much. I'm too afraid to say something that will make her angry. Just play the questline, you'll understand what I mean. You know the phrase, look for a partner who looks at you like character A looks at character B? That phrase very much applies to Nashu Makaraka, Hildy's faithful assistant, who considers everything the inspector does as brilliant, groundbreaking, and thoroughly exciting. Now, with the above said, their relationship is not romantic, but one of one-sided pure platonic admiration. She is the most loyal and most lovable character in the entire saga, and she must be protected at all costs. Sometimes even from herself, as she's quite handy with explosives, until she's not. She's a bit of an airhead, and by saying a bit, I'm being very generous, but it all adds to her charm. Then there's Greg, a familiar face to Final Fantasy players. Greg has appeared in many games, showing up as recently as Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. An avid collector of weaponry and a stalwart friend to those he cares for, he becomes embroiled in the misadventures of Hildibrand during the first arc of the questline, the one from A Realm Reborn, and has become a recurring character since. There are many more characters that are part of this wonderfully unhinged saga, but the above are more or less core to the story. And I think just from what I've told you and some of the footage you're seeing, you can tell you're gonna be in one hell of a ride if you take my advice and play through the adventures of Hildibrand. That actually reminds me, I forgot an important character. You, the Warrior of Light. Even in this questline, where the focus is often on the antics of Inspector Hildibrand, you are still very much central to the story, even if the reins of that story are in the hands of this merry band of lunatics. A Realm Reborn features 5 different interconnected cases dealing with a phantom thief, a weapons collector, an independent consultant investigator, and an ancient conspiracy tied to the very history of Ul'dah. Oh, and preening posing gentleman zombies. That too. Heavensward's cases take our inspector to Ishgard and an investigation into the mysterious origins of a black mage-attired mammoth. Mammoth being a form of construct commonly seen around Eorzea. This one in particular looking very much like Vivi from Final Fantasy IX. The investigation deals with old grudges, charlatans, swindlers, family, and as is usually the case in Ishgard, the Inquisition. Most crime capers have a cat burglar, but Hildibrand in Stormblood is the first, I think, to introduce a wolf burglar, one stealing from the rich and powerful in Kugane, plus corrupt merchants and a bodyguard with a very unique looking dog. Very familiar to players of Final Fantasy X and those who take part in the many events of the Manderville Gold Saucer. Shadowbringers didn't have a proper case for the Inspector, though keen-eyed individuals might spy his dashing figure in a certain gauntlet of heroes. Lastly, Endwalker, with another quintet of stories, has the Inspector deal with his own family history, and perhaps the secrets of their strength, and the mysteries of the cosmos itself, how life may develop on distant stars, and polygons. Yeah, polygons, let's leave it at that. Hildibrand is a fan favorite for a reason, that reason being its Looney Tunes levels of insanity. The characters and stories are varied but always hilarious. What's best about it is that everyone involved is earnest. They take everything that is happening, no matter how outrageous, as being completely serious, which of course makes it all that much funnier. Hildibrand and Godbert, hell, the entire Manderville family is so overpowered in all of their endeavors that they constantly baffle the people around them. Hildibrand continues to survive events that would have killed everyone else, and he takes it all in stride with style and aplomb. The Mandervilles, and by extension Nashu, very much break the laws of physics at every opportunity. Godbert even at one point considers taking hits from enemies on purpose, to see if they can hurt him and that way give him some artistic inspiration. Told ya, it's Looney Tunes. The cases pull elements and even characters from previous Final Fantasy entries, usually bosses and creatures. But much like it's common with such things in Final Fantasy XIV overall, they're not shallow references but fully fledged characters with their own motivations, which, given the comedic nature of these adventures, can at times be profoundly stupid. As I mentioned, the characters are delightful. Hildibrand himself is a parody of Inspector Clouseau from the Pink Panther movies. And he has his own theme song, poses, dances, collectibles, everything. And every case ends with the cast doing some form of performance as if the entire thing were a theater play. Add in obvious parodies of Sherlock Holmes and even Arsène Lupin and you have a delightful combination of character tropes to enjoy. Hell, even Mind Palaces make an appearance. The writing is spectacular. Many celebrate the more emotional writing in the game, particularly the stories at the core of the expansions. But Hildibrand is comedic writing at its best. It's comedy gold. The writers had a flair for the timing of their jokes and just how to pull off a good punchline. And though they keep heightening and escalating things, it just gets better and better. There's a reason Hildibrand has been around this whole time, and he's even coming back for Dawn Trail. Now, with all that said, it doesn't mean Hildibrand doesn't have tender moments. There's a lot of heart in these stories. It's just wrapped in a nice cozy blanket of outright chaos. Lastly, I'll say it's a saga that keeps you entertained throughout the expansions. As I mentioned above, the stories are told through a set number of cases, usually 4 or 5, meaning that you will enjoy the zany adventures of Hildibrand, the Mandervilles, and whatever outrageous characters they've managed to rope into their adventures in pretty much every major content patch. It's a great way to have some silly, lighthearted fun in the midst of all the other, much more serious adventures the Warrior of Light embarks on as part of the expansions. Hildibrand is a joy to experience. It's one of a kind and outrageously fun and funny. I can't sing its praises enough. I've laughed for hours with these stories, and I sincerely hope you will give them a try yourself. You're doing yourself a disservice if you don't play through the Hildibrand questline. Trust me on that. And if you do play through these stories, come back and tell me all about your adventures with Hildibrand and Nashu. See you on the next one, or see you in Tyrol, whichever happens first.